Hello, and welcome to our initial web chanting Sunday. This is our first endeavor to come directly into your homes via our YouTube and Facebook services. And it's an experiment using the technology available to us for us to try to be together in at least some way. As of today, unfortunately, I don't know for certain how many more Sundays we will not be having in-person church services. As we've heard, things are changing and in flux in our community, and so is our response. But we'll be sending out information and announcements by our email directly to you as things are adjusted at Channing. So I guess all that we can do right now is to just go with the flow. So let's begin our time together today, as we do with all of our services, with a chalice lighting. These words are from a colleague of mine who wrote them in her or for her online service. We are here today at the beginning of a time of distancing, knowing that we are called to do new things in service for all. Knowing that this change is an expression of our love for each other and the larger community. We light this chalice as a reminder. A flame is different every time it is lit, yet the flame is the same each time. And all our separate flames make this our special time of shared delight. I've observed that all this talk about the spread of the virus, the number of unknown cases, and sometimes contradictory information about what we should be doing individually, and this idea of social distancing for some unknown period of time seems to be causing an increase in anxiety in people. I went to the grocery store the other day to get a few items I needed, and when I drove into the parking lot, I wondered who had changed the date of Black Friday. The huge parking lot was filled with cars, just like on Black Friday. The aisles in the stores were jammed. The shelves were emptying fast, and people seemed to have a mildly crazed glare in their eyes as they rushed through the store. The kind of crazed glare that you witness in Best Buy at 6 o'clock in the morning the day after Thanksgiving as you're trying to get that $30 computer. And my friend just told me that his mother was accosted at BJ's this morning by someone who frantically tried to grab the toilet paper out of her cart. I'd say that was anxiety showing itself in a big way. I assume you probably have seen this increase in anxiety and maybe are even experiencing it a bit yourself. I know that I have concerns and more than a little bit of worry. And all of this virus stuff is on top of the other issues swirling around us. The election, the disastrous foreign policy that we have that is putting us at risk in different ways, saber rattling by various unfriendly governments, the wildly swinging financial markets, and the ongoing reports about changes in the environment as a result of huge climatic changes. Oh yeah, there is worry and anxiety in the air. Now, we humans are unfortunately and fortunately hardwired to worry and become stressed. Now, psychologists and other researchers tell us that stress in moderation is a good thing because it keeps us alert to the world around us. And that's why it is part of our DNA. It's a good thing that anxiety springs up in our minds and triggers a variety of physical responses when we face potentially harmful events. Our ancient ancestors became anxious when they knew there were wild animals around them that could eat them. But for many people, running from large animals is a less pressing concern today. So the types of anxieties that we now have revolve around work and money and family life and health. What this means is that the adrenaline that is pumped into our bodies that was needed to run from wild animals is today more of a harmful response for our mental and physical well-being in our more sedate and organized life. But unfortunately, it seems that there are more triggers than ever now, and that the 24-hour news cycle and opinion programming keeps adding on all sorts of things that we're supposed to worry about. It's increasingly hard to unplug ourselves from social media channels where we are expected to endlessly absorb information and to respond. And it also seems that there is now a social expectation, at least in some quarters, that we are to be incensed about all sorts of things that are going on. And when we are not incensed or wanting to jump at action, we are challenged that we are somehow dead to reality. Our anxiety responses, unfortunately, though, are now causing some big psychological problems for some people. And as worrisome as the economic and political and environmental matters are right now in general, psychologists have identified several particular reasons that are propelling COVID-19 anxiety to the front of the anxiety line. Primarily, we are being faced with medical uncertainty. Uncertainties instill a deep sense of dread. With COVID-19, the uncertainties include who is most at risk of infection or severe illness, who can spread it, what protective steps are warranted at this time in our area. Is hand washing and staying away from indoor crowds sufficient, or should we not leave our house? And how will this outbreak unfold? It's uncertainty that drives anxiety because we fear the unknown. With this virus, we still have a lot of unknown and uncertainty. Another thing that is driving COVID-19 anxiety is unfamiliarity. It's interesting that while the flu has a high fatality rate, it doesn't spur dread because it's familiar. The flu isn't novel. It happens every year and with some predictability. We are significantly more anxious about COVID-19 because this virus came out of nowhere and we don't know when it will end. Many of us are worried and anxious because of major leadership failures. Confusing and outright false pronouncements are coming from elected officials at the highest levels of our government that really do not give us a feeling of certainty about our future. And we even have had mistakes from experts. While people might discount what politicians say, missteps by supposed experts ratchet up anxiety even further. Health officials have given people conflicting directives about what to do. And all this strokes fear that the people who are supposed to know what they're doing don't. And perhaps the biggest issue is that all of this is beyond our control. Uncertainty now encompasses more than just medical issues. People don't know if their children's school will close, if their jobs will disappear, if a planned trip will be scrubbed, if the stock market will completely tank, or if our city will be put in lockdown. And there is nothing we can do about the decisions being made. Now, it's easy to say, stop being anxious, stop worrying, because especially when we can't change things. But really, that is almost impossible. Like I said, we are hardwired to be anxious where there are unsettled times swirling around us. But perhaps I was wondering if there were some possible ideas about how to lessen anxiety and worry. So I've been doing some research on what psychologists and counselors are saying about how we might be able to lessen our anxiety levels, at least about COVID-19. And that's what I want to share right now. This is what I found out and offer to you to consider to try to make our lives less stressed out at this time. First, and probably most important, is to limit news intake. While information is useful, too much information can be unhelpful. The coronavirus is the lead story in most news outlets, and people on social media are being busy sharing information and stories, some of which are accurate, but others may have little to do with reality, such as the recent Cornell Medical School so-called advisory that was sent out, which is fake, but it reported we should be doing things like eating vast amount of garlic or drinking water every 15 minutes to wash the virus into our stomach so digestive acids will kill it, and smoking weed. So perhaps we should consider setting just a regular time to check the news every day and focus only on new information. There's no benefit to watching the same news over and over. Checking in a couple of times a day and standardizing the times we check in perhaps will enable us to think less about it. In my house, we will watch one newscast a day and then change the TV channel if a news program we are watching starts to repeat the same news. As a matter of fact, we've stopped watching a lot of news about the coronavirus because it is anxiety producing. Another idea is to stop talking about coronavirus. Water cooler chat with coworkers and sharing the latest details with family and friends on Facebook or Twitter is common in tense situations. But that has a negative result of keeping us thinking about it, which can increase our sense of threat or risk. Perhaps we should consider not initiating conversations about the virus or feeling that it is necessary to pass on every piece of information we find on Facebook to our friends, to our family. Doctors also suggest that to reduce stress and anxiety, we should keep up our daily routines and make changes only when necessary. Maintaining regular schedules and routines is a good way to keep anxiety at bay and to feel normal. Even if some changes need to be made, maintaining an overall regular routine can be helpful to keep life on an even keel. Along the same line, staying physically active, especially if we're able to stay active or go outdoors. Maintaining physical activity and spending time in fresh air can help us keep our lid on our anxiety. And as members of a religious institution, perhaps something we may want to consider to try to lower our stress and lower our anxiety is take some time for meditation or set aside some time for quiet reflection or even prayer. And finally, when people who don't usually struggle with anxiety are starting to experience anxiety and worry more, perhaps what we need to do is to be self-compassionate. Don't be too hard on ourselves if we're experiencing more anxiety than usual. So these are confusing and uneasy times, and we keep getting bombarded with all sorts of news that seems to amplify the unsettled nature of it all. It's interesting, the other day I came across a poem, though, that I think sums up what most of us are wanting right now. It's called Boring News by G. Lars. Boring News. Widespread panic. Global pandemic. What's toilet paper got to do with it? The news is entertainment from internet heaven, streaming worldwide 24/7. Impatient minute pablum. We must have some. But just for one day, I'd like to tune in to hear all the talking heads say, the world was pretty boring today. We have nothing much newsworthy to relay. So let's hope that soon we can return to our time of normal and standard worries about politics, the economy, and the latest double dealing on Survivor and Housewives. And maybe we will come to a time when news will again be boring. Our weekly time of sharing is an important element in our regular services. And even though we are not face to face now, I'm going to light a candle to focus our thoughts on one another. As I light this candle, let us send into the wider universe our thoughts or words of joy and sorrow, concern and gratitude. Finally, I want to say that while we may not be gathering in one place as a group, we are still a community. We are all thinking about each other. We are all concerned about each other. We all care for each other. And we all are trying to live out the principles that make us Unitarian Universalists in our daily lives. And that's what makes us a community. Now, I want you to know that I'm available by phone or email for conversation. My contact information was in the email sent from the office on Friday. And Michelle is in the office to handle church matters and can put you in contact with the caring team if you need their assistance. So watch your emails for update messages from Channing in the days ahead. And may the blessings of our universe be with us always. So be it. Amen.